Good morning, everybody. We all are here on the launch of Chasing Dignity. I know we all do, conscious or subconscious level, but sometimes we don't know what we are doing. And person who know, he write the book. Mr. Sahota, Rachhpal Sahota, we all know him as a community leader, as a sportsman, as a scientist, but we didn't know this hidden side of him. I know he's a blogger, but when he told me that he's writing a novel, I said, scientist and a novel. Fiction and science, they are two different edges.
Don't go together.
He brought it together, I don't know how. We have speakers who are going to talk about this book. We have Dr. Rajendra Bajwa. He is a bone marrow specialist from Columbus. We have a Wendy Middendorf. She's from PNG. And then we have Chuck Shive. He's a CEO, a retired CEO from Food Corporation. We never retired in America. Right? And then we have Rachhpal Garewal, who is a hotelier, a community leader, and a well-known personality in a Punjabi community. In the beginning, I'll give the mic to Mr. Sahota, and then we'll go to the speakers.
Well, thank you everyone for joining me here. When I did science, right from my master's, I wrote theses, I wrote papers, I wrote articles. That's non-fiction. Non-fiction is exciting in the sense that you are telling something to people they may not know, but that's not creativity. Okay, you take some facts, you put them together so people can understand, and that's non-fiction. I started reading novels when I was little. I was in 7th grade. And it always fascinated me that how they can create these characters, how they can create these stories. And I had always that in my mind, to do something that creative. The question was, what would I write about? So you write about only, in the beginning at least, something that you very dearly know. And I know about Punjab. I was born there in a village. So I wanted to write about Punjab. I wanted to write about my village, all the culture. We always talk about Punjab, my Rangala Punjab, my green Punjab, my this Punjab, my that Punjab. There's one hidden aspect of Punjab. That's like a new shirt you're wearing with a spot on it, and you get so desensitized to the spot that you ignore it. So that spot, I thought, was the caste system. We have a whole part of in our society that exists there. We interact with them, but we just brush it off. We don't bring it into the definition of Punjab. So I wanted to bring that, and I'm proud that I brought it. That's about it.
You did a great job that way. This book can go into a lot of people's hand who can read about it. People who don't know Punjabi, they can actually know about a Punjabi culture or casteism or what we come from. People have really high hopes from it. You really did a good job on it. This girl, I think she's the youngest between all of us who read this novel. And yesterday evening, she said, "Uncle, I cried when I read the novel." I said, "Well, that's great. That means whatever Mr. Rachhpal Sahota was trying to say, he did it in the right way." We'll go to the speakers now. First of all, I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Rajendra Bajwa. Dr. Rajendra Bajwa.
Thank you, Pavanji, and morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to this book launch. in the beginning, I think I should make it it's a very honest opinion. I love everything about this book. Right from the name to the picture on the front cover. It's just amazing. Due to work-life balance, it took its own time to read it. I could read only a few chapters every night, but it was fun. Once I started it, I could not stop it, and I would wait every evening. Oh, what happens next? And it was kind of spellbinding, I would say. And for those of us in the room who are from Punjab, and I see almost everyone could connect to the book. And I think the best part it is that it is embedded deeply in the culture of Punjab. The book, almost all the characters in the book are Sikhs, but yet there is very clear description of what the caste system is. Sikhism is a religion of equality, but you can clearly see that they all have their own castes. That label is stuck on them, and that makes it very fascinating. Even today in India, the caste system is prevalent in almost every single house. I can tell you, so I am a Jat Sikh from India. In my house, I have seen this caste system every single day. We used to have maids or helpers at house, in the house to do, and those helpers and maids would have a separate plate and a cup and utensils. They would not sit on the chair with us while we were having food. They could not sit on the same level. I feel embarrassed to even say all that. So I think Mr. Sahota did a great job of depicting and bringing it to the audience that what the caste system is. I'll touch a minute about the medical aspect, which is mentioned in the book, about Jaggi's wife who develops autoimmune hepatitis failure, which ultimately leads to liver failure, and she needs a liver transplant, and then dies from an infection related to the whole process. I am a physician, I could easily connect to that part, but even to a non-medical person, I think the way he put it, he has given enough details for me to feel comfortable that he's done the amazing job, but for a non-medical person also, it's simple enough to still understand. I'll stop here and say that it was a very spellbinding book. I enjoyed each and every chapter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bajwa. And now we're going to go to our next speaker, Wendy Middendorf.
Yeah, thank you, and Rachhpal, thank you for the invitation to read the book and to give my thoughts. I thought before I got started, again, because I am not familiar with the culture, it might be helpful to give folks a little bit more background about me, and the lens through which I was reading this book. So as you mentioned, I'm from a very small town in Rhode Island. It's about 90 miles or 90 minutes from Boston. A very industrial town. In fact, a lot of people that settled in my hometown are immigrants. In fact, such was the case with my dad's parents, who immigrated from the Azores, which are Portuguese islands in the middle of the Atlantic. They came over seeking a better life, to work in the mills, didn't know any English. And really that's kind of how I grew up, I was the first person in that side of my family to attend college. Pretty much I'm the picture of the American dream. My parents taught me work hard, education's important. We were a very religious family, we still are. It was all about doing what's right. It was about respecting all people, recognizing they're children of God, each with different gifts, all valuable in God's eyes. And so I guess last point would be, very much like the main character Jaggi, I had a phenomenal mother who was a great role model for me. She actually was a teacher, worked outside the home. She later, after getting my sister and I through college, she actually went back to school herself, got her doctorate, and became a superintendent. So really, it's through that lens that I'm therefore reading the book. I live the American dream myself. I've heard about the caste system in India. If I go back, I had classmates in high school. I had friends in college who were Indian. I learned little bits about their lives. I worked with folks like Rachhpal at P&G. And so I had a general understanding of what it was like to be Indian, what it was like to grow up in the caste system. But honestly, after reading this book, I felt it through the main character Jagi. I lived it, and the third thing is I now better understand it. So yes, I didn't understand many of the words. I'm probably going to mispronounce the names, but the story was catching. The plot drew you in. I happened to be on vacation. And pretty much I had a week dedicated to, intense reading of the book, but I likewise couldn't put it down. The character development was phenomenal. I mean, it really pulled me in. Like you said, I'm crying now, but I cried when reading the books, and the friends who were beside me are like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, this book is great," right? It's just drawing out emotion, just like as I'm speaking here. What really hit me is the prejudices that I've witnessed here in the United States tend to be visible ones. They see you as a female, and they think something about what a role of a female might be. They see your skin color, and they think there's something. What was different for me here is this invisible prejudice is rough. The way that you build the story, people who became his close friends, people who were family members that taught him suddenly to understand what caste he was from, it was like a light switch went off, and he was, in their eyes now, a totally different person. Right? He was no longer that intelligent, athletic, caring person that they came to know and respect. Like suddenly, he was that outcast, and you did a phenomenal job of really conveying that, kind of understanding what a label can do. At the same time, it's a story of tremendous hope and strength. There were so many characters in the book that I came to respect deeply. They were both male and female. They were both young and old, whether it was his parents, whether it was his friends, both male and female, along the way, even those that he became in strong relationships with. They were tremendous characters. They understood the dangers of the caste system, but in their own unique ways, they were slowly trying to bring change. They were helping him along the journey, but at the same time being awfully careful to find ways to do so that protected both him and themselves. Again, for someone who's not Indian, not familiar with Punjabi life, I really encourage folks to pick this book up. I hope it does the same thing for you, help you feel what it's like, help you live what it's like, but perhaps more importantly, just touch you in ways that you'll take forward in your own lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Okay.
I'm
We'll go to our next speaker, Chuck Shive, a retired CEO from Food Corporation. Chuck has been married to his beautiful wife, Jamie, for 31 years. They have 3 successful adult children. They are very proud. Chuck, we would like to get some views about chasing dignity.
Absolutely. Rachhpal, thanks for inviting me here. I'll give you guys some of my background with Chasing Dignity, and Rachhpal is, as you give kind of my bio, retired CEO, had some time on my hands, and Rachhpal is my neighbor. Rachhpal came knocking one time and said, "Hey, I'm writing a novel. Would you mind looking at it? And telling me what you think," as he's doing it. So a whole lot easier to edit than it is to write. So the pages would come my way. We'd go back and forth in email and however, and I'd get to look at it. But as I'm making corrections, I'm reading the story. And like Wendy was saying, a lot of us have kind of the same thing. You have you say the subtle caste system in India and Punjab, but it's kind of that way in the U.S. too. Once you're reading the story, you've got a mother and a parent's love for their child, and they want their child to do better than they've done. And you have to fight through the caste system to do that. Well, in America, you have, they're from the other side of the tracks. Little subtle jabs on the American caste system. The other side of the tracks, they're blue collar, they're white collar. Oh, they're old money. Oh, they're new money. Well, it's an Americanized version of that. You're lower middle class, you're upper middle class, so they have that. So it's interesting to read the story. And like it's talking to Rachhpal once it's finally done and said, you know, it's kind of a universal story with that. You want your kids to do better. Your kid's a hardworking kid, and you can use athletics as a way to do that. I know somebody who kind of did that to lift themselves up from where they grew up. I'm a deep South Southerner from South Louisiana originally. And, you know, we were my dad was in the chemical business, so worker in the chemical business. So I used athletics to work my way up through college. That got me through college and launched in my business career and all of that. So it's interesting to read that story and see it from a different culture, but it's kind of the same story moving up, or a story that's very relatable. And when he was saying you read it, and you just become engrossed in the characters because you can see yourself in there. You can see the struggles that Jaggie's going through, and you can relate to it. And you can see ultimately what it is, though, is a story about hope and aspiration and bettering yourself and doing what it takes to, you know, fight through these prejudices that you might have, that anybody might have. And, you know, I look at it and you go, the story in general, if you change the names to John and Susan, it still applies. It's still very relevant to somebody who's not in the Punjabi culture or not in the Indian culture, that you can change those names to American names, and it's still a very, very relevant story and a very engaging story, and something that, you know, people can relate to. If you're a younger person, you can relate to it. If you're younger than me, you can relate to it. and it touches you, but you do read it and you become deeply involved with the characters, and like you're saying, what's next? What's gonna happen next? And that was part of it, of being like a small, you know, shadow editor with Rachhpal to go, okay, I'm waiting for you to send me the next chapters. Send me the next chapters. I know what I've looked at. I know I've changed some commas and some periods in here, but I want to know what's happening in the next chapters, because I want to see where the story goes. And I want to see how you bring it to a conclusion. And it's just very, very engaging on how it's done. And it's very specific to the Punjabi culture and the caste system there, but it's also very relatable for somebody outside of the culture to, you know, dive into it and really appreciate what the novel's telling you. So very well done. I love my part in it. So I very highly recommend it also.
By the way, one of the chapters in the book, I had a gap, and Chuck brought that to my notice. So one chapter I will dedicate to him.
I'll take it. 10% royalty.
Thank you so much, Chuck. I was thinking that if we go back like 60, 70 years back in America, and if we change the names, I'm sure every community went through that kind of struggle. I will go to Rachhpal Sahota. Will ask his expert views about the book. He read the novel. Rachhpal Sahota.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm not a good speaker, not a good writer, but when I read this book, now I put myself into those shoes and compare myself. Where do I stand? I like the strong woman, characters like Bindu and Dr. Gill. When I talk about Bindu, I compare to her with my mother. She pushed me to go to school, even she never went to school. And the story was very, very relatable. Even though I'm a Jat, upper middle class, but I had friends in my childhood who was degraded. I had one friend, he's studying. Even I myself ask him tough question when he can't speak it then we laugh on him. And we also have some Dalit friends, and we always, like you guys told us, we push them out from the teams. And that time I was part of that, who was pushing them out. Now I feel we did a wrong to our community. The Baldev, Jaggi's uncle, who visited from US, really moved me. He is the picture of all of us immigrants who did anything to succeed. I did myself. I clean the rooms. I work at gas station. I drive a truck. I drive a courier company. So whatever comes to me, I do it to succeed. That was, sometimes I feel it, that's me. Even my name is Rachhpal, not Baldev.
Father's name is Baldev.
My father's name is Baldev. Other part of the mass in the novel, I'm not very romantic. I don't read romantic books. The romance has been woven into the story. It was fantastic. When I start reading that, I can't stop. Even I call Rush a couple times. Hey, I can't stop. I can't sleep. Keep reading. The first half, I read maybe 2-3 weeks. The second half, maybe I read in 2-3 days. The novel may appeal to mature audience like me, who did wrong in the beginning, but they want to do right at the end. Thank you, Sahota sahab. You done a very, very good job writing a novel. So I thought maybe one day you write, maybe make a movie on it. And I will help you. Thank you.
So my name is Suki Gaines. So I have a little bit different take on this. Having not ever been to India, I was struggling with all the characters that were being formed. I read about 50 pages on the plane from LA to Sydney, and I put the book aside. When I came back from Sydney about 2 weeks ago, he sort of sent a text saying, this is occurring, this forum is occurring. And I said, okay, I better start reading this book again. So I reread the first 50 pages again. So that wasn't as challenging as initially. And in the last 3 or 4 days, I've actually finished about 130 pages. And the good thing is, like some of you have always sort of outlined, it's very difficult to put the book down now for me. And this morning, just before I came here, I read another 12, 13 pages, just like you were reading some pages towards the end of the book, right? So the book is very, very illuminating for me because having not ever been to India, having grown up in England, I only knew of 2 caste systems in Punjabi, the Jats and the Rangarias. That was it. And I had some friends who were Rangarias, I had a lot of friends who were Jats. I never knew, like Dr. Bhagwa said, there were other castes that were, you know, we want to call it a subcaste or others that were basically transferred over from the old Hinduism system, right? And that to me was very, very good, the way it's a very subtle subject, a very delicate subject, and you did a great job in sort of, managing that through, all the different storylines and characters that you had. And I think you took the characters in a very, very great way in that, you didn't end up defaming anybody, you didn't end up promoting anybody to a level that they were above everyone else. So that was a very subtle thing that you did. So my question to you is, the Jaggi character, the protagonist, you could have easily, or he could have easily taken the route of being an angry man, right? He could have been, he could have taken the path of revenge. Okay. Why did you choose him to be what he became in the book?
That actually is a very good question. I said that when I started writing the book, that I wanted to bring the Punjabi culture as much into the book as I could. The other hope that I had was that it should bring some change, even if it changes one person. I feel I had succeeded. Actually, Rachhpal also mentioned that after reading the book, he realized something that he had not realized before. So if Jaggi stays calm, mature, that's a success. But if he ends up being angry and kind of out of the world, then that doesn't change anything. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Bajir Singh. And congratulations to you, Sahota sir, for the great work that you did in writing this book. It's spellbinding, fast-paced, and I'm sure whoever reads it, they're going to enjoy it and love the book. And I'm sure there are a lot of books that could have been written about the caste system, non-fiction, but very few fiction books would have been written on the caste system. So that's very daring of you to have brought it out. And the good thing about bringing it out is awareness is going to increase, because of which maybe people will try and correct themselves and try to see that it doesn't have the kind of impact the caste system has been having. A couple of months back, while I was listening to NPR, surprisingly, the Cincinnati radio, there was a show about the Indian caste system. And one of the engineers working in California for an IT firm, he told about his experience where he never used his last name because he belonged to the lower caste. And he got away with it, and every year he was doing good, and his annual assessments were going good, and he was doing good for himself. Finally, then another manager came in, again a South Indian, this is about a South Indian engineer. And that manager insisted he wanted to know his last name, and so that he can connect him with which caste he belongs to. And he had to reveal his name, which revealed his caste. And that year, his annual assessment he got degraded, and he went down the. So it is very much prevalent, even the Indian diaspora, even in US.
Actually, in the big corporations, in Google and Facebook, it's a big issue. All these Indians in high positions are high caste. And there was a recent incident in Google. Pillai is the CEO, and he's from the high caste. There was this lady, she wanted to have a discussion, a talk about the caste. She was not allowed. And the Hindus, upper caste Hindus, they involve Sikhs as well. They say, oh no, this caste is not an issue. We should not be discussing it. Seattle is the first city now that has recognized caste as one category of discrimination.
And during the talk show, something new which I had not known about was mentioned again by one of those participants. He mentioned there's something as pat the shoulder. So pat the shoulder, and to find out the caste. And I was surprised, how do they find out the caste by patting the shoulder? You'll be surprised. What they're trying to find is he a Brahmin and wearing the sacred thread?
Yeah.
So when they pat the shoulder, they see, is he wearing the thread or not? So I hope and pray that a lot of people read the book, understand the system, get sensitized to it, and try and get over it and live as one mankind, one humankind, treat everyone with respect. Thank you, Sahota sir, again. Thanks.
Awesome, Karen.
Avtar Singh Khaira. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for inviting us here, all of us. And congratulations, Sahota sir, on the launch of this book. I actually read this book, the first draft, and then the second draft, and the final draft is quite a bit different than the original drafts, and which is which is pretty nice. I think you were trying to tackle a system problem that is, I don't know, millennials old, probably 4,000 or 5,000 years old. Even though the system was set up to make sure the society kind of works in a harmonized manner, but it turned into a situation where people started hating each other based on their system, their professions, etc. So I grew up in India. In villages at first, and then in cities. I went to school in Louisiana and engineering college, and I came over here. And I worked over there also in the downstream electricity board. And I've seen it, this thing play out time and time again. And I think if you hear the news on the TV nowadays, I guess the other day somebody was saying that they actually chastised somebody who was actually riding the horse during his wedding.
Yes.
And he was a low caste, and it was going through the city, and they actually had to drive him down. But I think the government has done a lot of changes in India, but they have mostly have worked for the economical situation. But I think the situation that you tackle here, which is actually the ultimate, is the marriages between the castes. And I think that is a very, very taboo issue. It's very, very difficult to actually get away with it in India. If the lower caste, especially if the lower caste man marries the upper caste woman, and they actually get run out of the city, exactly how it's depicted in this book. So I commend you for that. And it's a simple English. Everybody can read it. I think everybody should read it, especially in India. And also the people who are Indian background, they can relate and understand and maybe repent from what they may have done. Thank you, Sahota.
Yeah. So my name is Narsingh Mamindla. I'm from Hyderabad, Telangana district, Telangana state. I'm living in US since '98. Normally, I read non-fictional books. I read history books. I read philosophy. I read rational thinking books, Richard Dawkins, Noel Harari, all these books. But Rachhpal ji, he took a burning issue, a social issue, and he put it in a novel form. Which I think the subject itself is century-old, thousands of years old practice in India. Had it been explained in an academical way, in a non-fictional way, it would have been made a very less impact. So by taking it in a novel form, the characters within the novel, like Jaggi, Bindu, Navi, Rani, and everybody, you could able to give the emotions to the characters and the intensity of the problem. You could able to very well portray the intensity of the problem, how one will go through that phase of being a lower caste person, and how the hegemony of upper caste will always try to bully you and try to show you your place at every step. You could able to portray that in the form of characters in a novel form, which I think is a wonderful job he has done. And another thing is the casteism is more prevalent in villages, and India, 70% of the population, they live in villages, and the atrocities based on caste, the discrimination based on the caste is more prevalent in villages, and he took village as the base to portray this social issue, which is another thing. He has done a wonderful job there. Rachhpal ji, he has opened up a window of intellectualism within all of us, showing us, it's not just becoming wealthy, earning money and all that. You should see around what is going on around in the society and feel your part and do what you can contribute to the society also, which I think he has given us, all of us, an opportunity to open up a window of intellectualism within us. So that's a wonderful thing he has done, taking a subject which is nobody wants to talk about it in these days. And that novel, while I was reading it, it kept me in tempo to see what's going to happen next chapter. So every evening I used to just got addicted to complete the book as soon as possible. And I would say this is the first book I read so fast in my life. And I myself learned a lot of Punjabi culture. I am from Telugu speaking person. And in fact, I have little connection to Punjab, where I met my wife for the first time in Chandigarh. And I went to Bakranangal, where he was portraying the whole story, the trip to Bakranangal and everything. Conclusion I would like to say is there's a problem, how we can get the solution to the problem. And I think Rachhpal ji has touched a very soul subject. I wish this should bring a thought of awareness in the society, especially in India. And they should all try to see that this system goes off and everybody lives as one individual's community, not dividing among themselves. So with these words, I'm very fortunate to be part of this discussion. Thank you so much.
I actually have a question. My question, and for a lot of you, especially like you guys being younger, I've been out of school now for over a decade. And I'm sure you guys have raised your children in such a way. I'm curious how you kind of tried to explain to your kids, or how you've seen, or maybe with your peers, the caste system in America continue to be an issue.
The only thing I can sort of augment on that is that I remember in England, in the area that we were living in, right, we had a Gurdwara, which is a temple, Sikh temple, right? And my dad at that time, comes home one evening, he says, I asked my dad, I said, well, there were a whole bunch of other people there. I said, what's going on? He said, we are going on a collection outing to collect money to build another Gurdwara temple. And I said, what do you mean you're building another Gurdwara? I said, there's a Gurdwara just around the corner from us, Salt Hill Lake. We used to live in Karmadharan Avenue, just 2 streets down, there was a Gurdwara. My dad, which really shook me at that time, I was only about probably 14, 15, he said, no, that's a Ramkarya Gurdwara, we want a Jat Gurdwara. I mean, this is how, even in England at that time, right, they were sort of, that was sort of the mindset of our Punjabi culture, if you will. So I hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I think what you asked was how we taught our children. I guess luckily for me, I guess the subject never came up. I had 3 children. I guess they grew up okay. We never had any issues, or actually didn't even have to talk about caste system at all. As far as my growing up is concerned, I didn't really have any issues. My children didn't even ask anything over here, so they were born and raised here.
Jasleen, that was a very good question, and I'll try to see if I can answer it, or attempt to answer it. So, if I understand correctly, how did you teach the kids about this? The biggest responsibility for any couple is to make sure that their children are normal adults. And this might sound very duh, but it is actually very difficult if you think about it. Normal adult. What is a normal adult? Is a good human being who works hard, who respects everybody, who earns his livelihood, and who is happy. I mean, just basic things. But we sometimes, we see that the kids, then the environment factors comes in, and then there are other things which can go wrong at school or later in college, and the company in which they are.
This is answer to Justin's question. I feel actually pretty bad because we did not teach them how to handle certain situations. But I want to tell you two instances. You said your daughter is too young. Jocelyn was her age. We used to live in a small town, Norwich, New York, upstate New York, where it was all white community, except few Indian families. So they were very friendly, we didn't feel anything. But something happened. Me and Jocelyn, we went to Canada. And there, in that community, everybody was Punjabi. So she asked me on my way back, Dad, why can't we move here? I said, yes, but why? Everybody's like us. That told me a lot. How she was feeling, what a place. That's one instance. Second instance was with my son. He must be the same age. He had two friends, good friends. One was a good friend, one was his friend. One of the friends, he would tell the other guy, these brown people, they smell funny, they smell bad, don't they? Just to make him feel bad. So I don't remember what I told him. I don't remember any grandiose advice that I gave him. I must have tried to make him feel good. But at the same time, these are the issues.
My name is Samir Patia. Thank you, Sahota, for inviting me to this, and congratulations for such a wonderful job that you've done for I would say for the entire community and people who are outside the community. And this is such a wonderful book. My first sitting was 50 pages. It took me 2 hours. And then gradually, I started reading, and I finished it just last night. I wanted to make sure I finish it, and I read it thoroughly. First, it's such a wonderful book. I feel like it's a movie going on. I just can't, one scene after the other, I just can't keep it down. And it's so captivating. The characters in this, first I'll talk about the theme, I'm sorry, I'll quote one Punjabi, this thing from Bulle Shah, like, let's go to a place where everybody is deaf and blind, so that nobody recognizes anyone and nobody hears or tells any about the cost.
Where nobody asks you.
Yeah, nobody asks you about it. So I said, wow, this subject is so close to what Bulle Shah had said in few words, and that's what, it's such a sensitive topic. The characters in this, I find, like Bindu, the Jaggi's mom, she's such a strong lady, and of course, so proud of, he's always been so proud of his mom and very, very justified how and why. And other characters like, the professor, the teacher who's guided Jaggi. And there's so many times, I found, like, what if? There's, in our lives also, there are turns, some critical turns in our life, and which we think back, what if that didn't happen? What if he didn't have a friend, his father didn't have a friend, like, who's a professor? He wouldn't have guided. What if he didn't get the right teacher in school who would have? And what if, the professor didn't go back to teacher, hey, you're missing this thing. He is actually a over average child. Just don't miss on those small things and just see. He is in a first grade, he's able to do 4th or 5th grade mathematics. Such things like these, as everybody has said, everybody has something to go back to this book to relate to oneself. What it touches you. In our house, we didn't have a single photo of any god, goddess, nothing. I didn't even know what religion was. That's how I was raised. And they were Arya Samajis. And when I went to hostel, I was really surprised and rather shocked. Like 17, 18 years old, kids are talking about caste. When I came back during the vacation time, I asked my dad, I said, kids are already discussing about that. He didn't say anything, but I could see where it was coming from. And once, I was just kidding with him. I asked him, what if I get married to someone out of caste? He said, I would be most happy person of this world if you do that. But coming again back to this book, it was such a wonderful work. Thank you, Sahota. We did some theatres together. We've had many discussions. We shot one of that short films, and then I never knew this hidden talent in you. And when I read it, I said, wow, I'm so proud to be related to him. As Javed Akhtar once said, पलक पे हो मोती यही नहीं काफी, पलक पर हो मोती यही नहीं काफी, हुनर भी चाहिए अल्फाज में पिरोने का. So that's what I would say for you, Sahota sir. Thank you so much.
The young lady, I think she might, you want to say something?
All right. Khushi, you have something to say about the book?
Yes.
All right.
Hi, my name is Khushi and congrats on the book launch. And when I picked up the book, I couldn't put it back down. It was so good. It was like, I was born in America, so I never actually got to experience anything like that. So, like seeing when reading all of what happened and stuff, I was talking to my mom, and she's like, that's what actually used to happen. I thought it was just like fiction, but then I realized that it was actually was happening, and I was like, that's wrong. That's really wrong. That should not be actually happening. And she was like, yeah, it's not right. And I do not know what else to say.
I wanna go to Mrs. Sahota, because being a writer's wife, I know what ladies go through. My dad is a writer, so I know what my mom went through when he was doing his stuff. When Mr. Sahota was writing all this, or going through his own state of mind, what do you think about him? How he handled his responsibilities as far as the house?
Without being too detailed. He did kill the wife off.
Very difficult question.
Keep it clean out.
But he thinks a lot about the book, so I have to think automatically other things a lot. So I think that's what balances out. He does think about the book and the characters. When even you are walking after your dinner, then even he thinks about the book. So he does sometimes ask about, what do you think about this? What do you think about this and that? But he does spend a lot of the time on the computer. Sometimes, yes, some things, most of the things I can handle, but sometimes you need power. So then I'll say, okay, we got to do this. We have a time frame so we can finish this. We have to really get him, pull him away from the book, from the computer to do that. But most of the time he's very good actually.
Oh, I'm sure that's why he wrote a really nice book.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he can do it without your support.
No, that he did it actually pretty much.
Well, I mean to say that support is like when you are taking responsibility of the jobs around the house, then every Saturday, Sunday, cut the grass, do this, do that.
Oh, he is busy. He plays 5 days volleyball, and then writing, and then goes to Gurdwara. I mean, he has a project at our church, Gurdwara. He is president of Gurdwara. So he's building some wall around it so it looks nice. So he's quite busy. But I think
She the one complaint that I have, which is genuine, that I have no time for her. That's what she tells me. Sometimes there are things that are my responsibility at home which get delayed, then I get yelled at for routinely. But At the same time, what I would say is, I'm lucky actually that she tolerates me the way I am, which is kind of a big job. It's a tall order to tolerate me.
Actually, I'm lucky. I have a granddaughter. She is now 1 year and 2 months. So I run away every Monday to Columbus, and I come back on Friday evening.
That's how she manages it.
That's how I manage. I spend actually my time with my granddaughter a lot.
So Maggie, what was
I
your
love it.
what was your reaction when he said he was going to write a book, and then your reaction now that the book is done?
Well, when he said he's going to write a book, he
What was your
always said that he used to write little articles regarding diet, protein needs, and things like always science articles. But I knew that inside he wants to write something. When he finished it, I was like, good.
Writing a book
It's-
is a different thing, but creating all those characters around your subject and keeping them in place and maintaining that interest of a reader. You don't know who's going to read it and what state of mind he is going through, whoever is reading the book. So creating those characters and keeping them in place and keeping that intensity in place, that makes you a writer. So what came into your mind when you were writing the master's character?
A lot of those characters are from life. So that was the easy part. But at the same time, one thing I learned was I was not born a natural fiction writer. It took me a while. By reading a whole lot, by my beta readers like Chuck, for example, and Suki, Avtar, these guys, they read and then they commented, and those things helped me improve my skill. I used to write non-fiction, scientific articles. I'm very comfortable with that. But creating fiction, it took me a while. It took me about 3 years, a little bit over 3 years to write this book. So I would say that it's both my desire, my examples from real life, plus struggle and learning that went into creating this book. At the end, I want to thank you all, guys. I know you're all busy for reading the book, for coming here, for discussing it.
Thank you everybody for coming.